Okay, so we will continue on from where we left off, talking about the ordination requirements, what changes when you get ordained, what changes do you make, and these kinds of things. Okay, so let's generate our motivation. And the lunch that we ate today was due to the kindness of sentient beings who grew the food, transported it, offered it to us, cooked it. We have a building to meet in, again, due to the kindness of sentient beings who built it and all the donors who paid for it. We have the leisure time to think about the Vinaya and the Dharma, to practice it, again, due to the kindness of other living beings. If it wasn't for their support, we would all be working 9-to-5 jobs now. So our whole lives are very intricately intertwined with the lives of other living beings. And so it's only suitable, it's only common sense to care about those living beings. And just as we want happiness for ourselves and freedom from misery, especially the dukkha of samsara, to wish that for all the other living beings as well. And with that, let's generate bodhicitta and take the responsibility of practicing the path, actualizing the path, and helping to transmit it to other people who will benefit from knowing the Buddha's precious teachings. And so may that be our motivation for sharing the Dharma this afternoon. Okay. So we left off last time with what are the requirements for ordination. I want to back up a little bit first before we do that, because last time we did talk about the ultimate purpose of the Dharma, or the ultimate purpose, but for which the Buddha made each and every precept was so that the Dharma will exist for a long time. Okay? And as we've heard many times, the existence of the Dharma for a long time depends upon the Sangha, and especially upon the Sangha being harmonious. Okay? So the Buddha talked about 6 ways in which the Sangha should be harmonious. Okay? And that and that harmony is the key to a healthy monastic community. Okay, so I'll just list the 6 and then go back and explain them. So harmony in the body, harmony in oral communication, harmony in mind, harmony in the precepts that we keep, harmony in the views that we have, and harmony in resources and welfare. Okay, so let's go back to the first one. So physical harmony, harmony in the body. Okay. Yeah, we do the same things at the same time. We have a schedule, you know, and we all eat at the same time. We do our practice at the same time. We offer service at the same time. So we are in harmony how we live our life. And um, we, respect each other physically. Uh, we don't go around hugging people and tickling them and smacking them, although sometimes you feel like you want to, huh? No, but you restrain. Yeah, we heard the Dharma drum nuns were fighting after their teacher passed away. But we're not doing that, okay? So the physical safety is something that's very, very important. Um, and in that way, we respect uh, each other's things as well. We have our room, we have um, closets, things where we store stuff and so on. And we don't go rummaging through other people's things or intruding on their stuff. Yeah. Except me, because when you leave your stuff all around and it's a mess, I will help you clean it up. Okay. Then the second one is harmony in oral communication. Yeah. So we try and speak courteously. Yeah. To tell the truth, to not lie, to abandon lying, to abandon divisive words, you know, talking to one person about this person about that person, in order to make factions in the Sangha of, who's on my side and who's on the other person's side and so on. So that isn't only oral what we say, because we communicate through email. Yeah. We communicate um, through body language as well, yeah, by how we look at people. So to be aware of how we communicate and to do so harmoniously. Yeah. Things arise, and sometimes there's conflicts. So, when there is, then we need to sit down and work it out with the other person. Screaming at each other, throwing things, none of that works very well, does it? You know, I mean, if you want to be a monastic, well, put it this way: if you want to really throw things and have a temper tantrum, stay as a lay person. Do it, do that. Yeah, I'm not suggesting it. It's not a route to happiness, but we should act as monastics. And yes, sometimes our mind gets out of control, or we say and do something that's not so good. And we have to own it, and we have to go to the other person and apologize. Yeah. So, yeah, that whole thing of making amends is quite important. I mean, that's why we have the Posada ceremony, and that's why we uh, are open and transparent and confess our mistakes. We don't hide them. Yeah, we don't hide them. We don't say, oh, it's somebody else. Okay. Then the third harmony is in mind. Okay, and so here we appreciate and support one another. And so that's quite important, for harmony, you know, supporting each other, appreciating each other. Um, yeah, I mean, we're all in this together. And so having a kind of attitude towards our fellow monastics is very important, you know. Now, of course, sometimes, you would think because we all look alike, same hairdo, same stylish clothes. Um, you would think that we all think about alike. No. So, there's people with different kinds of personalities and people who do things different ways. But we don't have to judge people based on every small thing they do. Yeah. And just recognize there's differences. Okay. And people think differently. But we can still appreciate one another. Okay. So we don't have to have, exactly the same thoughts to get along. Yeah, we have to have a kind attitude towards each other and appreciate, that we wouldn't have a monastery to live in if there weren't for everybody else who's living here. Yeah, a monastery, has many people. We're not the only one. I know that sometimes that's quite difficult for people to really grok that you're not the only one living here who wants to be happy. Yeah, I know that's difficult, but yeah, I'm sure when you were a little kid, your parents taught you that too. Yeah, and that if you're nice to other people, they will be nice back. So in some ways, you become a monastic and you're doing remedial kindergarten. Yeah, you learn that, okay, somebody just threw sand at me. I'm not going to pick up sand and throw it back at them. I'm a monastic now, and I'm going to appreciate that person. I'm going to learn from whatever happened between us. Yeah, and I'm going to change and, try and become better by learning in that way. Okay. And so, sometimes we have to really work. You might have a Sam in your life. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, the EMLers don't know about Sam. Okay. So, my Sam story, this is just a diversion. Okay, so, our teachers train us in all different sorts of ways. And if we need to learn something, they don't always tell us directly because it may not go in. Yeah. And so it's very much up to us to learn from our experiences and our interactions with others. So I thought I didn't have much of a problem with anger. I got little ticked here and there, but, I didn't throw things. I did not yell and scream. Yeah, I came from a family, my mother's side of the family, yell and scream. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I thought I didn't have a problem with anger. So my teacher sent me to be the disciplinarian for a group of new Italian macho monks. You're getting a clue. Uh, so, being macho, they did not appreciate having a nun be the disciplinarian, especially when they wanted to sleep late and not go to morning practice. Yeah, but they had a nun that would go knock on their doors and insist that they get up in the morning and go. Okay. They would have liked a nun who was just always very sweet and who you could tease and make fun of and insult and take her work off of her desk and hide it. Um, one somebody who they could, yeah, not treat respectfully, who could that they could play their pranks on, and they got me. Um, you know, so it was kind of like sometimes like Los Alamos. Oh, some of you don't know what Los Alamos is. That's really That's where they tested the atomic bomb. Yeah, in Los Alamos, where they first tested it, and with Oppenheimer, and got that huge, yeah. So sometimes my interaction with some of the monks there was like Los Alamos. Okay, I don't like to fight, I don't quarrel, I turn around and I walk away. Give them dirty looks. How dare they treat me like that? And one time in a community meeting when they were really getting on me, I can't remember what, teasing me, denigrating me, I said, okay, they're treating me like this, so I'm just going to be me. And I cried in the middle of the meeting. This is not a usual thing I do. I thought, well, they're just going to have to, yeah. They didn't care, of course. Anyway, so I I contacted Lama Yeshe because he was the one who asked me to go there. And I said, Rinpoche, can I, Lama, can I leave? And he said, we'll talk about it, dear. I'll be there in 6 months. Anyway, I made it 6 months, and in the 6 months, the director, who was one of the monks, threatened, I don't know if he actually did it, to call Lama and tell him that I was the worst thing that ever happened to this Dharma center, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I finally get out of there, and I go back to Kathmandu, to the monastery in Nepal. And Lama Zopa, I went to visit him and make offering, and we were having tea, on the roof of the old Gompa. Everything's been torn down, since I was there, I think. So peaceful. Kathmandu Valley was pretty empty in those years, very peaceful and quiet. Sitting on the roof, talking with my Dharma teacher. Yeah, sounds great, huh? And then Rinpoche asked me, who is kinder to you, Sam, the one of the monks who was hardest on me, Sam, that's not his real name, Sam or the Buddha, who's kinder to you? Well, what would you say? Based on your experience, who's kinder? The Buddha. Yeah, Sam is not kind, you know. So I said, Rinpoche, the Buddha, of course, is kindest to me. And Rinpoche looked at me like, well, no, he didn't. Rinpoche wouldn't look at anybody like that. But I think that's probably how he felt, like, okay, kid. And then what I wanted him to say, because I had told him all about what had happened with Sam, and he knew it from the reports that he was getting too. What I really wanted Rinpoche to say was, I know Sam is a very difficult person. Yeah, there's many people in the organization that don't get along with him. But what you went and you offered service there for almost 2 years. You did your best. You did a very good job. And they may criticize you, whatever. That's not important. You really handled it quite well considering the situation. That's what I wanted to hear, right? You know what he said to me? Sam is kinder to you than the Buddha. Huh? And then he proceeded to explain that if you want to become a Buddha, you have to actualize the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections. And one of them is fortitude. Yeah, sometimes it's translated as patience, but I think fortitude describes it better. And one of them is fortitude. And if you don't have fortitude, if you can't handle, situations that make you angry, then you can't become a Buddha. And to have difficult situations that could make you angry, you need somebody like Sam. You're not going to practice fortitude with the Buddha because the Buddha is kind and compassionate. You have to practice fortitude with Sam. I just wanted some kind of consoling words, but Rinpoche, yeah. So that was my, maybe you could say your Zen koan. Sam is kinder to you than the Buddha. So, yeah. So those things happen, yeah. But harmony in body, harmony in communication, harmony in mind, appreciating other people, all of that is quite important, So Sam has his own problems. I can't control him. He's the only one who can deal with his own mind, okay? But I had to do something too. I couldn't just sit there and say, point the finger at him and say, he's bad, he's wrong, Okay, so that's harmony in mind. Then harmony in the precepts. So we observe the same precepts. Yeah, we have the same pratimoksha precepts. We keep them. We have the same teachings on the precepts. We learn how to keep them. Living in the Abbey, we have our own guidelines that pertain to the Abbey, so everybody knows those. And if you don't, you learn very quickly. So we have that harmony in our ethical conduct, our precepts and how we keep them. And that's very important because if you have people keeping their precepts in all different sorts of ways, it's going to be super confusing and there's going to be a lot of quarrels. Okay. Then the fifth one was harmony in views. And so here we study the same scriptures. Yeah, we do the same meditations. And yeah, we're learning the Dharma together, and uh, and so we grow up having similar views. Yeah. If you were living in a place where somebody said, oh, I believe in Creator God, and yes, it's a Buddhist monastery, but yeah, I want to worship God too. You'd have a problem, you know, kind of. Well, what do you really believe? What do you think is uh, the your dukkha, your unsatisfactory experience? What do you think are the causes? What's the remedy? What do you need to realize? What do you need to actualize? If people aren't in harmony in these kind of views, they're going to be doing all sorts of practices. Yeah. So, and then it becomes very confusing, and people are going, is that Buddhist? Is that not Buddhist? What are you doing? Okay. And it doesn't promote harmony in the community. Okay. And then the last of the harmonies is harmony in resources or harmony in welfare. In other words, we share the possessions that we have. We don't buy our own food. People offer us food. The food goes in the kitchen. Yeah, we are served food. Yeah, we do not have our own little private kitchens in our own room. Yeah, we do not go to the store and buy ourselves the things that we like. Um, there's harmony in resources. We share what we have. Yeah. We have robes. We have plenty of robes people have given us. So when you need something, that's given to you, that's fine. Um, we don't stockpile things. If you have lots of things, if you have 5 jackets, but one body, if you're like Imelda, what's her name? Marcos. If you're like Imelda Marcos and you have, 500 pairs of shoes, but you only have 2 feet, we need to share our requisites that we get. Yeah. Um, yeah. So that you don't have rich and poor monastics. When we're living here, we share everything what we have. That doesn't mean that we can go into somebody else's room and take what they have. It means that what the Sangha puts out for everybody, we can partake of. So like the food is put out, and then we take, whichever dishes we want and however much we want. Not the whole thing. We try and leave some for the people after us in line. But yeah, so we don't go into each other's rooms and take things and, so on. Yeah. Okay, so when you think about these things and ask ourselves, how well do I create harmony in the community? Physically, through my actions, am I, uh, or do I, come in rooms and I slam the door, or I don't notice how it, and I'm just banging around making a lot of noise or stomping through buildings. How do I influence people physically? How am I communicating with other people? Yeah. Am I communicating? Or am I just going, bleh, taking it all out on them? How about my mind? Do I appreciate people? Can I see the good qualities of the different people living here? They're not Buddhas. Yeah, they don't do everything we want them to do. Yeah, but they have the same aspirations in life. Yeah, and they're doing their best, and they're overwhelmed by afflictions just as we are. And we would like their tolerance of our mess ups. And we want to be considerate, of their mess ups. And we also want to try not to mess up. Okay. So to kind of check on that, harmony in precepts, to ask ourselves, am I keeping precepts the same way as everybody else? Or am I making all sorts of exceptions that I don't confess at posada and do this, that, or the other thing? I mean, that Kentucky Fried Chicken, when you leave here, yeah, they'll never know that I go, except we found out. Yeah, you think the CIA spies on people? No, this one, we didn't need to spy. KFC uh, sent a message on the phone that said, your order is ready, come pick it up. And that person, it's a public phone. We do not have our own phones. So somebody else, the next person who had the phone, saw that. Okay. Um, yeah, it's difficult to keep secrets when you live in a monastery. You really try. You try, but you get discovered. Yeah. Okay. And then, harmony in views. Are we sticking to the Dharma and what we learn? Now, we may have within the Dharma, the Buddha taught different philosophical views. People may favor one or the other of them. That's fine, yeah. But it's all stuff that was taught by the Buddha. We're not, mixing our practice in with, the latest new age, who knows, whatever. Yeah. Okay. And then harmony in resources. So sharing what we have. If we have a lot of jackets, a lot of shoes, a lot of who knows what, put some in the storeroom or put them on the counter, and the people who need them can take them. Yeah, we shouldn't be stockpiling all sorts of stuff. When you consider we have one body, there's 4 seasons, spring and winter, spring and autumn, kind of you can mix and match your clothes. So we don't really need that much. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then, then the next thing is becoming a monastic. So when somebody becomes a monastic, then there's many changes that you go through. Yes, you have to be aware of this. It's really important. Okay. And these changes mark the difference between being a monastic and being a lay person. I once was asked to teach at a Dharma center in Kansas City. And yeah, it was Kansas City. And there was a couple there. The man was a layman. His teacher had told him, I guess, that he could teach. And there was also a Tibetan monk there. Okay. Every time, the person who was the teacher wore robes that looked like monastic robes. They weren't, but remember I was talking about this the other day? Yeah. So, he had something maroon. He wore just a regular shirt, that was a lacer, and then a zen, okay? And he shaved his head. And his wife was perfectly fine with all of that. Okay, so when he went to teach at the center, he was dressed like that. The monk, most of the time when I saw him, he was a visiting Tibetan monk, was in lay clothes. What is going on here? Yeah, there's got to be a difference between the monastics and the lay people, and we shouldn't be wearing each other's clothes. Okay, when you go out and work in the forest, you have to put on a pair of pants, maroon pants, baggy pants, Yeah. And when you go out, you wear your robes. Yeah, I think that's quite important. You wear your robes when you go out. We watched a long life puja that disciples of one lama offered. We watched this just a month or two ago. Remember, people offered His Holiness a long life puja, and there were people wearing monastic robes with long hair. Yeah, in the audience. I wasn't the only person who noticed that. Some people remember. You don't? Oh, you didn't look at the audience very well. Other people? Well, now you know how closely I follow you. Because I notice things that other people aren't going to notice. But like when you have really long hair. I mean, they had long hair like this, nice hairdos. Hmm? Um, you know, when you're monastic, you change your appearance. You wear robes, you shave your head, yeah, no makeup, no scents, yeah, yeah, no sense. Yeah, yeah, really, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, you can wear deodorant. You must wear deodorant, but unscented deodorant. Okay, and use unscented soap. Yeah, although sometimes you're at somebody's house, a guest, and that's all they have. You have to use it. Okay. Um, Try and get, if you have lotion, because our climate is very dry, try and get unscented. Yeah. So, yeah, so our appearance changes. Mhm. Um, yeah. Okay, so a change in appearance. A change in name. Yeah. So we receive a Dharma name. Yeah. And our Dharma name is different than our lay name. Okay. And we generally do not choose our Dharma name, it's given to us by our teacher. Yeah. In the case of people ordained here, they get the first name Thupten because that was Kyabje Ling Rinpoche's name, and he was my ordination master. So that's your first name. And then people who have Tenzin as their first one, His Holiness ordained them. Okay. Um, so, yeah, so you use your Dharma name. Now, I know sometimes at the beginning it's difficult, and especially sometimes with your family. You know, at the beginning, I just let my parents call me anything because they were going to do it anyway. And then finally, I think my mom said, or my dad said, uh, what, the name we gave you wasn't good enough? I said, no, it was good enough. I liked it. But when we get ordained, we, have our Dharma name and we are called by our Dharma name. Okay. So even though if you have a refuge name, yeah, you don't use that. You use your ordination name. Sometimes Tibetans will keep what their refuge name, but I think it's much better to use your ordination name. Okay. So when you have your email, it should be with your ordination name, not with your refuge name. Okay. Then change in livelihood. Yeah. How do we get the necessities of life? Well, lay people go to work. Yeah. And we belong to the free lunch club. That's what Bob Thurman calls the Sangha, the free lunch club. um, yeah. But, how we get our livelihood. Yeah. We don't work at jobs. It's, now, I mean, I'm telling you the way it should be. Now, some monastics do work at jobs. Yeah. It's very difficult for them. You have to go to work 8 hours a day. Then they usually wind up living in their own place. And then you get a paycheck. So you have your bank account. You have to pay your bills for electricity. And you have your car and you have to pay for gas. And you wind up basically living like a lay person. Yeah, you have a job, you have to put on lay clothes to go to your job, you handle money, um, you know, and then you're not living with the Sangha, so you need friends, and your friends wind up being lay friends. And then your lay friends want to go out, to here and there, and they invite you, and you want company and you want to be part of the group, and then you wind up saying yes and then you regret it later. So livelihood, living in community, these things are very much related. If you're on your own, you have to earn your own livelihood. you know some people say, oh, but I'm a monastic. I live on my own, I have my own flat, my own car, blah, blah, blah. And the lay people don't, but the lay people don't make offerings. They don't support me. Well, they don't see the Sangha living a Sangha lifestyle. Yeah, they're living just like they do. And so, yeah, so there's a reason when they don't support. Yeah, I know in the West there's very few monasteries. Yeah, but we really need more. But it's something we have to set up ourselves, I think, and manage ourselves. Um, the Tibetans have their own way of organizing things, and in the West, we have a different way of organizing things. So it's I think things have to be set up according to the culture that you're in. Yeah. Okay, so change in name, change in livelihood, uh, change in dress. So I just talked about that, what we wear. Um, and by the way, with our robes, we don't need usually when you ordain, you don't get brand new robes. You get hand-me-downs. Yeah, because in ancient times, the Sangha, their robes were not made out of new cloth. They had a lot of difficulty getting the cloth to make robes. So they took pieces from the charnel grounds. They took bits of cloth that was lying on the side of the road, and they stitched them together. And that's why, if you look at our robes, there's a lot of patches in a certain formation. And that's because, you know, to remind us that actually we shouldn't be wearing brand new robes. We should be using cloth that has been used before. Okay. Okay, then change in diet. Okay, so traditionally, the monastics would go on alms round, and so they got their food from alms round. Yeah, and there were certain times of the day to eat and certain times of the day not to eat. Okay, um, being from the Mahayana tradition, we practice a bit differently than the Theravadas do regarding this. When you go on the Theravada monks and nuns go on Pindapat, remember they're not begging, it's alms, they're going on alms round. Um, the idea is that you accept whatever food is given to you with gratitude. So you don't discriminate between meat and veg and non-veg. Yeah, you don't say you're there with your bowl hoping somebody gives you something, and you don't say, I don't like that stew, I'm vegetarian, can you give me some something vegetarian? Or did you put too much chili in that? If not, don't give me that. Give me something with less chili. You're not picky. What? That's in the Mahayana tradition. Yeah. Um, I don't think in Theravada. I don't know. Does anybody know that? If the Theravada monks were eat onions and garlic. No. Okay. What? Yes, but in general, yeah. But they have a different Vinaya. So I don't know what their Vinaya says about onions and garlic. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because the Vinayas of the different traditions are very similar, but they also have some differences. Okay. When I stayed at a Theravada monastery, to do research for the book, um, people would bring food to the monastery in the morning, and the monks would go out on Pindapat, and they would get meat, and they'd go through the line, and then I would go through the line, and sometimes you can't tell what's meat and what's vegetarian. But I had a friend one of the monks, there were several Western monks there. So one of them was my friend. He knew I was vegetarian. So when he went through the line first, being a monk, then he would take stuff out that was vegetarian and put it in a separate bowl for me, so that when it was my turn, there was some veg stuff left. Okay, he was very kind. Okay, so change in robes, change of how we receive our food, change in lodging. Okay, so we should live with other Sangha. Okay, and especially the nuns. We're not supposed to sleep alone. We're supposed to sleep within arm's distance of another nun. In our culture, it's quite interesting. When I lived in Singapore, even with the lay people, when we had a retreat, yeah, everybody, the women and men were separated, but all the women would put their mattresses right next to each other. Yeah, and that's how, used to sleeping right next to somebody else. Yeah, in the West, we're used to having our own bed, and there's a space between our bed and the next bed, and stuff like that. So, that is something that has to be adjusted to according to culture. I think if we were sleeping too close and you're sleeping next to somebody who rolls over and they smack you, um, that wouldn't be so good. Okay, but we also share our rooms. When you live in a room, you might say, this is my room, but it's merely designated because all the rooms, all the buildings belong to the Abbey. They do not belong to us personally. Okay, the beds, the bedding, the carpet, the towels, all of that belongs to the community, even though you may say, this is my towel. Okay, so sometimes you have a roommate, and you and your roommate may have different schedules or do things different, or they may burp in the middle of the night and you don't like it, or they may toss and turn and disturb you because you're a light sleeper, and they may talk in their sleep. You don't do that, and they get up before you, and when they get up, they make a lot of noise, and they snore in the middle of the night, and they get up in the middle of the night to go pee, and you're just crazy. You're really neat and they're a slob, or you're a slob and they're uptight being so neat. Yeah, yeah. But this is part of our practice, isn't it? Yeah, getting used to making what is unfamiliar familiar. Yeah, and you may not be used to having a roommate. Yeah, you may be an only child. You may have, 14 brothers and you're the only girl, or 15 sisters and you're the only boy, so you have your own room. But in the monastery, we have to share. Okay, and we change rooms every year. Some years you may have a roommate, some years you may not. Yeah, so you have to get used to all of that and recognize that your roommate has a right to live too. Yeah, that the purpose of your roommate is not to do everything you want them to do when you want them to do it. Yeah. Maybe your roommate is your Sam. Yeah. and you're living with your Sam. And your job is, to appreciate that person, have compassion for them, yeah, find a way to get along with them. Yeah, because if you can't get along with them and you harbor this, can you cultivate bodhicitta with that kind of mind? If you're competing with your roommate, I want, to be noticed more than others. I want to be give better BBC talks. I want to, chop down more trees in the forest. Yeah, I want to, whatever your thing is, and you're competing with your roommate. Yeah, that's not going to work, is it? So, this is part of your practice, is part of our practice. Yeah. You're going to look at me and say, but you don't have a roommate. Yes, I do. Yeah. And sometimes in the morning when I'm sleeping, she'll come to my face and she'll go like this. You know? And sometimes she's friendly and sometimes she will not give me the time of day. Yeah. And sometimes she wants to be pet and will sit and curl up in my lap. That's usually when I have to get up and do something. But when I want her to sit in my lap, she runs downstairs and takes refuge with Venerable Samten and Venerable Semke. Yeah. She said, got to get away from that person upstairs. Yeah. She doesn't give me enough food. No, some days she gives me too much food and then complains that I don't eat. But sometimes she doesn't give me enough. Yeah. And I want to go outside and she won't let me outside when I want to go. So yeah, we have to get along with the other living beings we share the space with. Yeah?
So in terms of picky eating, what do monastics do regarding food allergies?
The basic food allergies are of dairy and of gluten, and we provide dairy-free and gluten-free. The dishes are labeled. If you see GF is gluten-free, and DF is dairy-free. So, yeah.
For Theravadins who go on Pindapat, and maybe they have like an egg allergy or a nut allergy, and they can't see the food sometimes, like what it's cooked with,
I
what would they do?
have no idea how they work with that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I think they may just eat it. Or, you can give some of your food, you take one bite and it's, you have a peanut allergy and then you discover there's peanuts in it. I think you can give it to your neighbor. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, if you die, we'll bury you. It's okay. Don't worry. you know, we'll keep your picture up there on the wall. Everybody will know who you are, and we can put died of peanut allergy due to, fellow monastics in consideration for not, doing CPR on you. Okay, diet, lodging. Then seventh one is change in responsibility towards the Buddhist community and society. Okay, so we have a responsibility towards the Buddhist community. Yeah, it's not all about my Dharma practice. It's, whatever we learn, to share that with others. We have that responsibility, and we have the responsibility to the greater society as well. We live in society. There's no place on this planet, or even if Elon Musk starts sending people to Mars, there's no place on Mars, too, where you live in where any of us live in isolation. There's always society. And so we have a responsibility towards society in general. I think for monastics, especially in the West, well, but also in Asia, in some ways we are the conscience of society. Yeah. People want the death penalty. We talk against the death penalty. Yeah. So we try and give a moral, ethical view to different social policy. Okay. Now things are going to, somebody for sure is going to say, what about the abortion issue? Are you pro-life, or are we or are we for abortion? You know, what is it? Yeah, because America is very split that way. You're for or you're against. Actually, when people ask me, I tell them I'm both. Okay, because first of all, I don't think this should be a political issue. And I also don't think what people do in their own bedroom should be a political issue, or who they marry. Okay. So if somebody asks me, you know, should I have an abortion? I counsel them, and I tell them how my little sister, you know, was the product of a rape, and her birth mother gave her up, and I always wanted a little sister. And I'm so grateful that that mother, you know, didn't have an abortion, gave birth to my sister, and we took her home when she was 2 days old. We didn't have any baby stuff in the house because I was 15 at the time and my brother was 12. Yeah. So I tell people, you know, try and avoid abortion. If they ask me personally, you know, I'm certainly not going to say yes, it's, you know, karma free. It's not karma free. However, do I think there should be laws in the country about abortion? No. I think a woman should have control over her own body. The government should not make you have a baby, but you have control, and you also have responsibility, and you also reap the result of the karma you create. Yeah. So I don't think all ethical issues should involve the government. You know, people still have their own ethical issues, yeah, to decide on. Okay, so that's when people do. But we have a responsibility to society, yeah. And when people again ask me about abortion, um, I say unwanted pregnancies is something very difficult. It's hard for the woman. It's also hard for the man. You know, nowadays everything's being put on the woman. It's not. You know, somebody commented that women are fertile maybe 1 or 2 weeks during a month. Men are fertile all the time. So why is it women's responsibility? Yeah, the men need to be aware and responsible, and yeah. I heard of a book, I won't tell you what the title was. I'll tell you later. But it was basically for the men, you know, and it's like, guys, you know, you need to be responsible. Yeah. So the men, you know, the monks, when you talk to people, or, you know, the nuns, when you talk to people, we have to explain these kinds of things. Yeah. We also, on different social issues, you know, probably we differ, you know, from a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, I would like immigrants to be welcome in this country. Yes, we need legal immigration. You know, we can't just have everybody arriving haywire at the border, but we need to have an immigration policy that works, you know, and stop the fighting about it. And unless, uh, actually, what somebody said to me is actually all of us are the children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves, even if you're Native American, because your ancestors crossed over the Bering Straits from Asia into America. So they're immigrants too, you know. So we need to be kind to other people, especially to refugees. I mean, this is kind of basic compassion, isn't it? Yeah. So we have this responsibility to society. Does that mean we get politically involved? No. We should avoid political involvement when, at least the way it is right now, we can advocate for different causes, yeah, but we don't tell people who to vote for. Okay, we had, because, you know, as an Abbey, we are a 501c3, so we're a nonprofit organization. Nonprofit organizations, by the government rule, are not supposed to be politically involved. Now, I know some churches, in some churches, the pastor will tell people who to vote for. That is illegal, and they can shut you down, you know. And I don't think it's right to tell people who to vote for. This, you know, is your own personal decision. I make comments about issues and I make comments about behavior. And sometimes those issues and behavior concern specific people who are advocating for that. But I don't want to tell people vote for or against that person. Yeah, is that clear? Okay. You know, of course, I think people get an idea of who I vote for. Yeah. but, uh, but, you know, I respect that people have different opinions. You know, when I talk about lying, you know, there's examples in our society of people that everybody knows. Yeah. So it's helpful to use those examples. Yeah. Okay, so those are the changes that we have. In terms of responsibility, usually as a layperson, you have responsibility for your family. Yeah. As a Sangha member, you have a responsibility for society and for fellow monastics. So we should avoid getting involved in family drama. Okay, every family has their drama. We are not, should not be the people that, you know, I talk to this person and try and help them make up with that person and, you know, like this. No, we can talk about the Dharma with each person, help them leave aside their anger, cultivate kindness and compassion, but we don't become uh, you know, we maintain the role of a spiritual guide. We're not a family member trying to get people to talk to each other again or work out different things in the family. Okay. We are left home folks. And this can be difficult for people. Yeah. I had one friend and her parents bought a house next to the Dharma Center and gave her the house. So she was a single monastic living in this big house. You know, she let me and other nuns stay there when we were there for teachings. Um, but her family expected her to go on family vacations with them. Yeah. And, and they expected her to come home every Sunday night for dinner. And, there were these kinds of things. And so, yes, you maintain your relationship with your family. You have 2 weeks off, at least at the Abbey every year. You can go visit your family. I recommend short visits. Yeah, because when it's a short visit, you get along so well. When it's a longer visit, old habits come up. Okay. But yeah, you know, in the ordination ceremony, it says the king, can no longer make you a subject. Of course, we have to modernize that now. Um, but your parents will not make you again their child. Yeah. In other words, you're entering a different kind of role. Yeah. And that's hard, especially for our parents, who most of our parents are probably not monastics and aren't familiar with monastic life. My parents weren't, you know. And so, this idea of left home life is like, I'm losing my child. What are they doing? You know. And so it's very important with your parents, call them on their birthdays, on Mother and Father's Day, send them a card, call them. Oh, when they say things like, what did I do wrong that my child grows up to become a monastic? Tell them that your monastic life is because they did a lot right. They taught you, they raised you to have good ethical conduct. They raised you to be a person that can interact with others. They taught you manners. Yeah, they taught you etiquette. These things are important. If our parents hadn't given us that basic foundation, I mean, we would be behaving like wild animals, which my parents told my brother and I that we did anyway. Yeah, but uh, so we have to tell our parents, remind them of what they did for us, that we benefited from. And when we want to ordain, it's because we're building on what they taught us. They taught us fairness. They taught us compassion. They taught us, ethical conduct. And so, as an ordained person, we're building on that. And so we show appreciation to our parents, you know. So, we have to go beyond being a rebellious teenager at some point in our lives, you know. And along the line of with parents is I'm very much in favor of parents and other family members visiting the Abbey. You know, in fact, it really warms my heart when I see that, because my dad came one time, my mom never came. Okay, and for years my parents didn't talk to me, but because I ordained, yeah. But so when I see parents coming and they want to enter into their child's life, or your siblings coming, and some of you, now have siblings who attended a course. Your sister, Venerable Jigme's sister, was just here, yeah, and your sister visited, and your mother visited, and your mother visited, and yeah, and so it's really nice. Both of your parents visited, your parents visited, your parents visited. Yeah, it's really good, um, and because when your parents come, then they see, okay, you change your clothes and you won't have a steak with them, but you still love them and you're with really nice people. Yeah. And then your parents, their minds quiet down. Oh, I met my child's friends. They're nice people. They're good people. Like, okay, yeah. And so that's very nice. And then, sometimes parents get interested in the Dharma. Yeah, your parents come to the talks. Yeah, has your dad taken refuge yet? No, we're working on him. Yeah, we're working on him. But yeah, okay. Anything? Okay, then we will continue. So now to the question you asked, yeah, which was what are the criteria to be ordained, and are there certain disqualifying factors? Okay, so when you take the novice ordination, the the Shramanera ordination, there's 13 major things and 16 minor ones. And at the ordination itself, you are asked questions about this and you have to be able to respond. Okay, so, so let's go through them. So here we'll go through the 13 major ones first. Okay, so the first one is if you've committed a parajika. Okay, so if you've been ordained before and you did a parajika is one of the actions that if you do it with all the branches fulfilled, then you're no longer a monastic and you can no longer ordain as a monastic. Okay, so those four, the principal ones are to kill a human being, yeah, to steal something of value such that the government would be involved, to have sexual intercourse, and to lie about spiritual attainments. Okay, so if those are done, then finished. Yeah, the bhikshunis have 4 extra ones, but in terms of the shramanera, um, you know, the main precepts are the same. You know, they have 10 precepts. Okay, so shram, oh, the parajika. Yeah, Parajika. Yeah, parajika. Okay, and that makes sense. If somebody has violated one of the main things, you know, with all the factors complete, then you know they're really moving in the opposite direction from where the Sangha is going. Okay, second one is somebody who has sexually violated a bhikshu or a bhikshuni. Okay, so you know, this comes up sometimes. You have monks that come to the West, yeah, who don't behave properly, yeah, and a laywoman, you know, they, you know, the laywoman says, "Well, I don't know what your precepts are. You should know what your precepts are. You should restrain yourself." And so, if they, you know, the monk is coming on to her, she usually agrees, thinking, you know, I mean, if she wants to, or sometimes somebody may force themselves on someone. Yeah. So if anything like that has happened, then you know, the it's the person who if you're raped, you're not responsible for that. Okay, but this is when you've initiated it and have done something that has made a bhikshu or a bhikshuni lose their precepts, you know, by having sexual intercourse.
Even if the person who violated the
Yeah,
bhikshu or bhikshuni didn't know that the monastic had a precept of celibacy.
yeah. Okay, that can be a little bit sticky. It happened. I was involved in one situation where somebody wanted to ordain and they had sex, you know, they had told me about this before, with somebody who was a monk. And so I researched that. And let me think for a minute. what came of it, she knew he was a monk. I don't know if she knew that he had a celibacy precept or not. Most people would assume that monks are celibate, but it gets confusing if you have Tibetan lamas wearing clothes that are not robes but look similar, or when you have uh, in Zen, you have the priests, and a few of those orders are celibate. Most of them aren't. So it is sometimes difficult. But the thing in this particular case was this monk had he had had sex before he had sex with her. So even though he was wearing robes when he met her, he was not a monk. So she could still ordain because she hadn't violated the celibacy of a monk. Yeah. I mean, this is, we hear about the 6 naughty monks. There's more than 6 nowadays. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then the third is who's disqualified is someone whose intention is for first personal benefit, or they call it stealing the Dharma. Okay. And what this is, and you see these things, at the Buddha's time, you see them now. People who wear robes and they'll go out in the street, usually in a Buddhist country, with their bowl. They're not monastics, but they put on robes and they beg. Okay. When I lived in Singapore, and I assume Malaysia probably has that too. Yeah, I don't know Korea. But, and also at His Holiness's teachings, often we see Theravadas. It looks like monks. We don't know whether they're monks or not, or whether they're people who have put on robes and just gone there because they want to collect food. Yeah. Sometimes you can see if they know more prayers than Namo Tassa. They learn that one, but do they know something else, or did they just learn that so that they could collect some food? So that kind of thing of pretending to be a monastic so that you can reap the benefit from it. Yeah, or yeah. So people who do that cannot ordain. Yeah. Then the fourth one is people who have joined the Sangha, then they left to follow another religion, and then they want to come back. Yeah. So the first time they ordain in the Sangha, maybe they don't have any of these hindrances, they ordain, that's fine. But then, and this happens. Well, the one person I'm thinking of, they were a lay person, not a monastic, but they practiced for many, many years and practiced the Dharma for many years. Oh, I actually know one person who came to our group in Seattle, and she later became a Catholic nun. Okay. She wasn't a monastic, she was a lay woman, but practiced and then became a Catholic nun. And yeah, we're still in touch. And she was very respectful towards the Dharma, when she left. But so if somebody, they're ordained and then they say, oh, well, actually, I just had a spiritual crisis and I decided, that I believe in God after all. So I'm disrobing and I'm going to go ordain as a Catholic or, a Catholic monk or nun, or I'm going to become a pastor in, Protestant church, or a rabbi, or, something like that. Yeah. And then they do that for a while. And then after a while, they say, well, actually, I really like the Dharma. I want to be a Buddhist again. Okay. Well, that's fine. They can come and be a Buddhist, but they cannot ordain. Yeah. Why not? Because their mind is not stable. Yeah. What they believe is, here and there and here and there. Yeah. And you can imagine somebody, being a monastic, then they go to a church and they ordain. Then they come back here and they're talking about the church and they're talking about, God and all this stuff that we don't do. So, for that reason, they are not allowed to reordain. Okay. But it does say that, let me just see, yeah, is that people who, okay, so if somebody from another religion, it doesn't say that they're a monastic, if somebody from another religion joins the Sangha and they previously came from another religion, they should live with the Sangha for 4 months first. Yeah. So that's what the Buddha did, because, different people followed different wandering ascetics at the time of the Buddha. Then they came back, they wanted to be the Buddha's disciples. So they had to live with the Sangha as a layperson for 4 months before they could ordain. I think nowadays, if this happened, more than 4 months. Yeah. Many years ago, it happened twice actually, that some Catholic monastics contacted me. One time it was a nun, one time it was a monk, just asking about Buddhism and our precepts, and, kind of not saying outright, but I could tell that they were thinking of, maybe becoming a Buddhist and testing the waters if they could come here, that kind of thing. And but they were living in their own monasteries. And then I thought about it and I said, have you talked to your spiritual mentor, your spiritual director in your monastery about contacting me and your interest in Buddhism? Guess what they said? No. So I said, well, before we continue our dialogue further, you need to talk, because they're already ordained. You need to talk to your spiritual advisor about this and get their permission. Because could you just imagine that, what would happen? Somebody, runs away from their monastery in the middle of the night, comes here, we ordain them, the next day, and then the church that they belong to finds out. Oh, yeah. And then also, it's just the person's own mind is confused. They don't know what they believe. Okay. Then the next one, I don't know what kind of time is up. Should I go on a little bit?
It seems like people usually don't live with the Sangha for 4 months, right? Isn't that, I've heard of a couple stories where people find a teacher. You tell one story about this guy who went to many different teachers asking to be ordained.
Right.
I imagine he didn't live with the teacher for 4 months before he got ordained.
No. He lived at different Dharma centers.
Oh, so that
And
counts as
he had
living
been
with the
studying
Sangha.
the Dharma for a while. So he wasn't coming from another religion cold.
Okay. And another question I had is, with the 5 lay precepts, you can choose not to take one, and you can also give them back, or
Yeah.
give a specific one back, keeping the rest.
Yeah.
Can you do that with monastic precepts?
With monastic precepts, you cannot give an individual precept back, but you can return your ordination. And, some people are ordained for a while and then they decide to disrobe. And then they need to say to somebody who can understand, that I'm giving my precepts back.
And when you take them, you have to take all of them.
You take all of them and you have to give all of them back. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No cherry picking.
How many times that the person can be repeated ordained?
Yeah, are you planning on breaking
No,
the
I'm not.
record?
No, because I heard this in Taiwan many times from some people, so I got confused.
Yeah. Usually they say for monks, they can ordain 7 times. Yeah. And the reason for this, okay, I'll talk about the nuns in a minute. The reason for this is, for example, Master Shenyan from Dharma Drum. Yeah, he was ordained in China. Then when the war between the communists and the nationalists broke out, he had to enlist. And, and when so he gave his precepts back. He was in the army for a while. He didn't do combat duty. But then after the war was over, he reordained. Okay, so that kind of thing. For the nuns, yeah, what they say is the nuns can only ordain once. But, my Theravada Bhikshuni friends have said that is not at all in their Vinaya. Yeah. Now, Dharmaguptaka, I haven't seen it in our Vinaya, but it could be a teaching from Venerable Daoshan, who is he lived, 6th century? And he was the one who really described all the precepts and formulated things and wrote all the books that, the commentaries on the precepts that are used. So I don't know if it came from him or if this is just something that people think. Okay.
So these criteria are for they are not allowed to ordain in this life, but can they ordain as an anagarika in?
Yeah, anagarika is not a monastic ordination. Yeah, so, if you're a lay person, you can take the anagarika A precepts. Yeah. Okay, we better stop and then continue tomorrow.